Pandesal are Filipino bread rolls that are soft and pillowy and slightly sweet, and they are rolled in breadcrumbs and are absolute perfection. Hi, my name is Janelle and you're watching Everyday Jane, where I make homemade delicious food, often inspired by the flavors of the Philippines. And today I bring you a classic Filipino bread called pandesal, and I can't wait to show you, so let's get started. So before we start to put things in the stand mixer, we have a few things to prepare. So you wanna make sure that you have your flour milk paste, and this is a technique we're borrowing from Japanese milk bread, and it really just helps the pandesal be pillowy and soft, and that's what we want, right? We want this pandesal to be super, super soft, and that can be sometimes a little bit hard to achieve when you're in a home kitchen, so we are using this as one of the softening techniques. So to the saucepan, I'm adding 3 tablespoons of flour, as well as a 1/4 cup of whole milk, if I can get it in there without spilling. 3 tablespoons of water. So after you add your water, milk, flour, you are going to stir this together and wait for this to start to come to a slight boil. You want to make sure you continue to stir. You can see it starting to thicken. Very close to where you want it, just a little thicker, and this will be perfect. And now that is the consistency we're looking for this paste. Another item we need to prepare ahead of time is our yeast. So if you're using active dry yeast, which this recipe calls for, you need to bloom the yeast. I just put the active dry yeast in a little bit of warm water and let that sit for 10 minutes until frothy. So this recipe calls for 3 cups of all-purpose flour. Feel free to use bread flour. So 3 cups of flour goes right into the bowl. So we're also going to add a 1/4 teaspoon of sea salt. What's really great about this recipe is now we're just gonna dump everything in the bowl and then we're gonna start to mix it on the mixer, so it's really great. We'll put in our yeast next. We're also going to put in 3 tablespoons of melted butter, 3 tablespoons of olive oil. So I'm doing a mix of fats here. Another way this is going to be really soft is because it is a enriched dough with all this fat and milk as well. Next, we're gonna put in 1 cup of whole milk, as 1 egg. And because Filipino pandesal is soft and slightly sweet, we're gonna have to add a sweetener into this. So we're also going to add in 1/3 cup of white sugar. And lastly, that flour paste we were talking about, that also goes right in. So if you'd like, you can give it a stir with your hand here first, just to kind of get this going. And then once you've kind of brought it together, the mixer is going to do the rest of the work, and we can pop this on a mixer with the dough hook and just let it rip. Okay, so this dough is now on the stand mixer. You can absolutely do this by hand. You would just mix it in the bowl and then topple it onto your countertop with a little bit of flour and just start kneading, but I'm gonna use the stand mixer today. So we're gonna put this on and let it go for quite some time. We really want to start building that gluten, and we want this to be a rather wet dough. The stand mixer is moving my island. He's sleeping through the mixer chaos. And it's been on the stand mixer for about 11 to 12 minutes actually, so it does take some time. Be patient. So I'm gonna pull off the dough hook, and you wanna take a look at this. That's definitely the texture that you're looking for. So still really soft, still really supple. It still forms a bit of a ball. Sloppy one, but a ball nonetheless. So what we wanna do is let this rise at room temperature, or a slightly warm room temperature, maybe your oven with a light turned on. This is an enriched dough, so it could take longer than usual for just regular, flour and water doughs to rise. So for me, it usually takes 1.5 to 2 hours for this to double in size. Now, because I don't like to wash dishes, I am going to use the same bowl. But what I wanna do is just get this dough out onto a floured surface first, grease the bowl, and then put it right back in. I have a damp tea towel covering this bowl, and we'll see you again when this thing is doubled. Okay, so we're back, and this dough has risen. So if you want to take a look, it's more than double the size really. So what we want to do is lightly flour our surface and topple this dough right on in because it's time for shaping. So while you're doing this, you're going to knock the air out of the dough, which is exactly what you want. So just lightly get the air out. Wonderful. And what we're going to do is roll this dough sort of into a log, because what I want to do is try to get as even cuts as possible without worrying about measuring each individual piece of dough. Make sure that I get 18 pieces. So it's a little bit hard to kind of gauge just by going across. So my typical way to do it is I'm going to cut it into thirds, or what I think is a third. I think that's about right. And then each of these thirds I am going to cut into 6. So right in the middle, and then again. So we just do that with the rest of the dough. And the next trick is to make sure that these are sort of in a round. So here is a chunk of dough. What I want to do is just kind of flatten it into a circle, and then I'm going to pull the ends into the center so that the outside is sort of getting a little bit more taut. So I'm pulling this in and then flipping it over, and then I'm going to put it down onto the counter. I'm just going to do that. And then you have a nice little circle. Again, pulling in, right? It doesn't take very long at all. And then just doing that's my favorite part. So if you're anything like me, you're not good at estimating. So what I've been doing is when I've been forming these little balls, I've been taking off a bit of dough on some pieces that just looked way too big. And now I'm gonna go back and look, hey, which ones are looking a little bit small? So take a piece of dough, I'm just gonna stick it right in the bottom. So you can reform them, and then it really just gives a little bit more weight to some of the dough balls that might seem a little bit smaller. So I'm just gonna go back and do that. And that way, it's nice and casual, don't have to worry too much. All right, so I have 18 balls of dough, and the next step is to make sure that they're coated on the top with some breadcrumbs. You'll need about a 1/4 cup to 1/2 cup of plain breadcrumbs. I have them right here in just a plate. And then we'll also need a 13 by 9 baking dish. And I've lined it with parchment paper, and I've also greased the outside, and that's what we're gonna use to bake our pandesal. This is exciting, we're getting closer and closer. I'm gonna grab one of these, and it's okay that I'm grabbing them kind of in one way because pandesal typically are a bit more oval than they are round. And then dunk them in, give them a little dance, grab it, and then place it into this baking tin, and I'll put that right in here. Dunk, dance, and place. Anything extra, you can sprinkle right on top. And then if you want to take a look at these. Okay, so these are all beautifully lined up. They're looking great so far. All that needs to happen are that the pandesal needs to proof, so maybe a 1/2 hour in a warm place with the same damp dish towel right on top, and they're gonna get all plump, and you'll know that they're ready to bake. And they are ready to go in the oven at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for 25 to 30 minutes, or until golden brown. All right, so our pandesal has come out of the oven and it's cooled a little bit. It took about 26 minutes until they were perfect golden brown, and these guys look perfect. They are so pillowy, so soft, and I cannot wait to dig in. So let's do that. I've got my piece here. Let's take a little bit more of a manageable little nibble. I love pandesal and homemade bread. Like, any homemade bread in general is so amazing. Such a big treat for me to be able to enjoy pandesal freshly made right at home. It brings back all the memories, all the fuzzy feelings, and I really just want to call up my dad and my mom to come on over and enjoy this with me. But anyway, hope you enjoyed this video. Try out some Filipino pandesal, and I hope you come back for another video. Bye!